And we are live. चैट आएगी तब समझ जाएगा अभी के लिए तो वी आर लाइव. Let me see. Yeah, we are visible. Everything's cool. Post कर दिया ना. Z, how is your team looking? I didn't take screenshots of our team, so we will have to verbally tell our
Yep.
team. I'll
Yeah,
try to upload games. Yeah,
just
in
made
between.
one transfer, so not much
Hi,
changes.
Southwick.
Yeah.
Southwick Ghosh, welcome to the stream. आ जाओ बाकी लोग भी मस्त join. Hi, Varun. How's your team looking, Z? How's everything going? Are you set?
Yeah, pretty much set. Locked in my transfers.
How's your team looking, Z?
Okay, I think
How's
there's an
everything
echo.
going?
Hold
How's
on.
your team? Okay, you need to stop your YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, team's fine actually. Just made one transfer. Took Odegaard out, and I got Mitoma in. So I've got three Brighton midfielders this game week. And yeah, Captain McAllister. We'll go to our teams just minutes before the deadline, but just one change for my team. What are you? Are you planning to make a lot of changes? Have you already made your changes? What's in store
So I'm
for you?
not planning to make a lot of changes. I've not made any changes. I'm saving a transfer this week,
Okay, that
but
is
captaincy is totally up in the air. So that needs to be like thought about. Still not sure whether I should captain a Brighton player or not. So yeah, that's there.
so. Brighton midfielder or Tony?
Yeah,
What do you think?
that's about it. It's between March, McAllister, and Tony essentially. So yeah, not sure honestly where will I end up like by the end of the stream.
Yep. So I think that's going to be one of the talking points, and we'll do the live Q&A, and I'm sure most of the questions will be about Brighton, Tony, these
Yeah,
these
yeah,
three or
hands
four
down.
players, and obviously the captaincy as well. I think Liverpool players and Haaland could also sort of have a say this week because all the focus has been on the double game week players, but I think some of the single game week players also have a good fixture. So obviously Haaland is one player that sort of stands out to me. But we'll see. We'll see what the questions are like, and we'll take them. Uh,
To me, I think probably someone like a Kane or a Salah or maybe a Liverpool player stands out over Haaland. Even not saying that Haaland cannot or will not score, but again, more preferring that side more.
Yeah, I think Liverpool have just obviously we spoke about this in the previous weeks as well. I think they're peaking like when we were
Yeah, they
discussing
are.
that
They are.
how the fixtures are coming into play, and Salah is playing a bit more central now. Trent is looking a lot more better. So I think they're looking better as a unit, and that is like benefiting everyone from Liverpool. And uh, I remember we discovered all options, including Hakpo and Nunez and Trent, and they all actually ended up doing well. So. So if
Even
you
your
went for
double defense. Let's just tell people where like a lot of people didn't or may not have seen, but Z went with a double defense. Since then, you've kept like 3 clean sheets. I think 3 clean sheets
so
for you
I
back
got
to back.
unlucky because Robertson was benched in one of the fixtures and Van Dijk went big in that one. So that obviously, but I was happy with the decision making. I think Liverpool are looking secure, and I am always happy with the fact that they've got someone like Allison who can bail them out in games where they don't really
Whenever.
look that good defensively. So I think that's fine. Again, I'm not expecting a lot of clean sheets, but I think a side like Liverpool can probably end up keeping 2 out of 4, which is a good ratio, especially in this season where teams have not really been solid at the back, maybe apart from Newcastle. And we obviously all of us have Trippier already. So I think having Trent, and I think Trent has that big haul in him. He's looked good. He's racking up the underlying data, but the returns have not come yet. So I think that's about to happen in one of these upcoming game weeks. He's gonna go mad. I'm expecting a double digit haul, maybe this week or in the upcoming double game week for sure. I
I'm
think
genuinely worried in terms of not owning a Liverpool player this week. Could be real. Could the swing could be massive because again, it is a prime fixture. It's Bournemouth. They've already scored earlier in the season as well against Bournemouth. This week could be the same. I
yep.
contemplated or not. The only factor is that it's only one game week before a blank game week. It can also be in isolation a decent move to move sideways, like maybe a Gakpo for a midfielder and you take the chance, but I don't think there's a lot of room for it.
True, true. Also, you said that Haaland obviously could do well, but he's not someone that you're like very much worried. Is it because of the fact that his effective ownership might not be that big of a worry anymore
Yeah,
because
yeah, yeah.
not a lot of
Same.
people
So
are captaining him?
I think his EO will be about 100, So I'm not worried even if he goes big. So you don't gain a lot, you don't lose a lot. But wherein the gains in terms of Tony, not is specifically Tony. I think Tony will be the least gain like possible. But the Brighton mids can offer huge gains, and that is why I'm looking at two fixtures there. But again, this is the perfect week when a single game week player could outscore all of the double game week players, and I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, yeah. I think Haaland does worry me, but like you said, even if he goes big, it won't really be a big problem because he's
Yeah.
not going to be very highly captained. A lot of talk about Harry Kane. Personally, and I've mentioned this in the past, he does not worry me a lot because if you look at his recent data, I think the last big haul that he had was way back, like about 8 or 9 weeks back versus Crystal Palace in a game where not a lot of people had him. He got like 16 points. I think, in that game. Apart from that, he's just been that steady sort of a guy who gets maybe 6 points. Sometimes he'll blank every now and then. So there's not really that factor where I'm fearful of Kane, and Spurs are not that inspiring. I think their defenders have done well. I was looking at some data where the guys like Emerson Royale have got like 35, 40 points in the last few weeks. But Kane, I mean, do you think he could go big? Obviously, I think the fixture is good. NFO at home is a nice fixture. What are your thoughts on Kane?
I think Kane will go big. So for people who are considering to bench Kane or let go Kane for Darwin, I don't think make the sideways move. I think Kane, this is probably the game week where you want a reaction. There will possibly be a reaction, and Nottingham Forest are the perfect opposition at home to play against in such a situation. So I think yeah.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
apart from Kane, let's there's a lot of questions coming in, so let's jump on that. So a popular debate that has to be addressed, obviously, is the Brighton midfielder debate. Where are you, and what are you on in that perspective? I think you have three of them, or maybe two. How many
I
do
have
you have?
all. I have all. I actually had one, and then I got McAllister last week, which turned out pretty good. Scored a penalty, got a very jammy assist, and this week I've added Mitoma because I think it's not. Yes, I get the fact that his underlying data might not be as good as March, but he's getting the points, right? He's effective.
Yeah.
We've seen he's been proving himself week after week since the World Cup. So I think it's a risk going without him. So I'm happy owning all three. Uh, I was looking at one of the tweets by Fantasypedia where they sort of did a comparison for all these three Brighton midfielders, and it's ridiculously close. So normally, we say that, oh, it's really close. It's actually the case this time around that all three of them, they have their pros and cons. McAllister in that number 10 position, I think, is a standout. He also has the penalties, and I think that is why he's my preferred pick ahead of March and Matoma. Where do you stand, Anshul?
So there's been a lot of talking in terms of the stats and everything. Now there is something more which I have like dived into in terms of game states and like how the game could play out in terms of Leeds and Crystal. Now even I think just Gabriel who does a zonal matchup as well, even Fantasypedia who do a very good zonal matchup. So everyone knows that Leeds and Crystal are weaker on the left side, but their left centre backs are one of the stronger centre backs they have, and the left back as well. Junior Firpo is very strong in terms of he's getting decent performances overall, and 1v1 situations or in general defending situation is good. Second thing, which I think is a situation as well, it's same with Crystal Palace as well. The other problem I have with March or probably even captaining March, I'm just addressing the entire captain March situation as well here, is the fact that in times when Brighton have possession, more of the possession, which could be the case as Crystal, maybe even Leeds, March is staying on the sideline a lot more. He's dropping much more deep. He's staying on the sideline much more often. This is something you can observe in the game. My problem and my worry is in case if they're countering, they're doing a counter attack. I think March is high up the pitch. He's very fast. Even Mitoma is doing that. But if he's not on the counter, if they're controlling position, March could be playing very wide, which could become a problem essentially later on. And that is why, and he's fit for people who are considering March. He's fit. That's not a problem. But these two look like a problem to me. Mitoma this week is somehow I'm feeling like a more of a captaincy shout than McAllister and Marsh together. So if you want to go differential, I think Mitoma is the perfect one this week. Luke Ayling is very weak. Something in the Leeds game, Luke Ayling is always very high up the pitch, especially on corners or set pieces, and even in general during attack. So that leaves a huge void behind him. Even Adams generally covers McKennie. So there's like general space on that left flank as well in terms of attacking and counter attacking. So that could play out. And Mitoma is fast enough and in general very good in terms of 1v1. Luke Ayling is a player who could give away a penalty, and in 1v1s he's very easily beatable. So I think Mitoma is a good option this week if you want to generally go differential and captain someone there. McAllister, you can captain for the penalties. Otherwise you can stay away and go Tony because Tony also has penalties. Between the three, essentially for a longer period, I find March and McAllister better because penalties and more consistent performances. This week specifically, I'm more interested in captaining Mitoma if I had to.
Yeah, yeah. I think I like Mitoma as well for a lot of them. That was my thinking that I need to get him in as an insurance in this week, because if you look at those matchups and how it could sort of turn up, Mitoma could get end up in
And
getting a lot of points.
and
Yeah,
also like March has a tendency to cross the ball more often than rather than cut in and take a shot. This is generic tendency. So even if like they're if Leeds and Crystal are weaker on the left flank and they're getting bombarded that side, March is controlling the ball. He's more likely to cross it to Mitoma or McAllister or Ferguson in the box rather than just cut himself or dribble himself and take a shot. Like
yeah,
Players like Saka, Salah, these players like want to cut in. Even Mahrez wants to cut in and take a shot. March is not more of he's more of a wing back. Obviously, he's traditionally been that, so he doesn't have that selfishness as much as other players have. So I think that's also a factor. Maybe this week, maybe just the matchup will help the person who's in the opposite flank and the person in the box more than the player who's playing on that flank. So hence, I think maybe Mitoma is the so if you want to go differential, I think Mitoma this game week is perfect for Mitoma captaincy.
yeah. I think you can say killer instinct is a word, right? Mitoma
Yeah, yeah.
has that killer instinct a lot more than March. Also, a very quick point, because you mentioned about availability and fitness, and uh, regardless of what has been tweeted by a lot of accounts, March is actually available. He's fit enough to start, but I think Mitoma's minutes could be more secure. So we could see that March could end up getting hooked around 70, 75 if
Same. He's been doing that
Brighton
for
have,
a while now. I
which
think
yeah,
that
which
will be
we
the same situation.
Mitoma and McAllister could end up getting 90 minutes in both the games, which could be crucial, because a lot of times we see in the last 10, 15 minutes where teams are tired, they're really going for it, leaving space behind. That could work in Mitoma and McAllister's favor. So that is, I think, another plus point, and that is one of the factors that puts me off Solly March as a captaincy option as well. So yeah,
Just to like add more, we look at we look at every benching questions that you guys are putting in the chat, even the team questions. Don't worry, guys. You can keep liking the stream and putting in your questions in the chat. We'll address that. But again, a meta question that people have is McAllister captaincy. I'm put off by McAllister captaincy only for one reason: is the Crystal Palace game. So apparently, I've been reading tactics, and it could be a situation where Lukongo, they might require McAllister to play much more deeper than usual to tackle Lokongo. Maybe the Dukuru is out could help him and he could stay up the pitch, but there could be a tactical switch in the Crystal Palace game. The Leeds game is obviously a money ball game for them. They would try to score as much as you can, but again, that is why I feel that Mitoma against Luke Ayling this week is a much better matchup and much better situation to have into. McAllister, you can captain him. My only problem is one, he's a poor finisher. Obviously, you're relying on penalties, and the XG he's accumulating is decent, but again, he's a poor finisher. So you can back him that he's getting the chances, but the second game could turn out to be very different than the first one. So be prepared for that if you're going for a McAllister captaincy. Again, although I still feel like long term he's better player because he has the penalties in his box.
yeah, I think there has been the speculation, and it's not out of nothing. Despite the fact that I'm captaining McAllister, if anyone saw the recent cup game that Brighton played, McAllister was not playing as a number 10. He was playing as one of the holding midfielders, and Pascal Gross, he was playing as a right back. So I think Gross becomes an important factor, even though we're not considering him for FPL.
Yeah,
If
it does. It does.
yeah, if De Zerbi decides to put him in as a right back, then the only option that he has for that holding midfield role in a two is McAllister. So
And
uh,
Caicedo, yeah. So that's two. He'll play Caicedo and McAllister again. It could be a good matchup in the Crystal Palace game because Lokongo is very good in that area. So to really tackle him, McAllister could be used that way. So wouldn't be surprised, and that's why I'm putting up a heads up that this week you could figure out, and you might see that happening in the second game.
yeah. Um, so we obviously a lot of chat about the Brighton myths, Anshuman, and for the right reasons. Where do you think Tony fits into all of this? Do you think he's as good or maybe even a better shout than the three Brighton
So
midfielders?
I think two things. Now, just give my opinion on Tony as well. I'll ask, like you can add into Tony is not a bad shot in terms of captaincy. The Brentford attack, in terms of numbers, is not very bad. They've put up 15 big chances in comparison to Brighton 16, which is decent. Away from home, also they've scored decent with 13 odd goals. He's very highly involved with something that we know. Something that, and I am personally looking at captaining Tony this game week, and the only reason I am looking is because Everton and Southampton both have given away decent chances to the opposition strikers. So in the last 2-3 games, you see Ian Archer, Watkins, all of these strikers who were playing whichever player was playing central, he had a lot of chances against these opposition, and that is why I'm very inclined to go Tony. It could play out for him, although we know that it could, like, Brentford's away form isn't that great. They've had only 2 wins, so that could be a problem. But again, I'm not very put off by that. I think 2 goals by Tony is decent. So if you're looking for a safe option, maybe Tony, and I'm at the moment at the safe option. If I had Mitoma, I wouldn't captain Tony. I think I would have gone Mitoma there.
I think so. Obviously, looked at some of the data here, and my conclusion was that Tony is a good captaincy shout playing for a team that is not great away from home. So Brentford is a team, they are inconsistent when they're playing away from home, but still somehow Tony is the one who is involved every time they get something away from home. So if they're to score, it's very likely that Tony will be involved either in the goal or the assist. My logic is that if you're looking for a safe floor, right, Tony is a good captaincy shout. I'm sure that he will not blank. He will definitely get at least one return. But my thinking is that with the Brighton players, right, the three midfielders that we discussed, and the kind of opponents that they are up against, I think even though the floor might not be safe, the ceiling is very high. So if you look
Yeah.
at someone like a McAllister or Mitoma, like you said, who's very dynamic, he has a killer instinct when he's inside the box, PhD in dribbling, right? He's just right up there. He's the kind of player that you love having in FPL. I think the ceiling is ridiculously high, and for that reason alone, in a week where effective ownership might not really be a concern, right? It's pretty safe to bet against Tony, I think, and I think we have to roll the dice. So that is my thinking, and that is why I'm backing the Brighton midfielders ahead of Tony for this particular game week for the armband.
But what do you think? So even exactly what I'm trying to, I'm checking this right now as well. So Leeds at home recently have been decent, and they look like a team who are a defense first approach team at this moment. To me, the fixture with most of the Brighton goals will be scored is the Leeds fixture. Now, if you put Leeds as a decent team who can defend well, who are not conceding a lot of chances, obviously they've played poor oppositions, but even against United, I was checking their numbers. So in terms of shots, they've only conceded 3 shots and 3 big chances, which, like, United also created very awfully. So maybe that is my only worry in terms of captaining the Brighton player, because if the Leeds fixture turns out to be a low scoring fixture, I don't expect a lot of from the Crystal Palace fixture could be very dicey in my opinion, and that is why I'm slightly more put off. Although I still feel like, in terms, obviously Brighton are an elite attack, we know that, and they've been putting up that numbers. In terms of comparison, just like pure comparison of attack, Brighton is way ahead than Brentford. Despite the stats being very similar, I think still Brighton is better.
Yeah.
But
So
I'm not extremely confident, but I'm not extremely put off by it as well.
yeah. So there is one logic that sort of stands out to me, and obviously this could backfire terribly. And it's the fact that both the opponents that Brighton are playing this week, they're fighting relegation. So they are in need of points. Now, when a team is fighting relegation and when they're up against a team like City or Liverpool, the approach is that we're going to defend, right? We're not going to have a go at them. We will sit sort of set up defensively, and every now and then we'll try to get something out of the game. So mentally, they know that these are not the kind of games that we're going to win. Now, when they're up against a team like Brighton, the thinking is different. They're like, we will have more difficult games. Yes, Brighton are doing well, this season, but they're not unbeatable. So a Leeds or a Crystal Palace, these managers for both these teams, they look at this game as something where they can get something out of the game. They will not look at, okay, we might end up conceding 2 goals, but what if we can score 3? What if we can score 4? They'll go into these games looking at them as, yes, these are the games where we can get 3 points out of it. So that is my thinking, where I'm thinking that Leeds and Palace, they both will think that they can get something out of Brighton. They'll have a go, and that will play into Brighton's hands. So it could actually work in their favor. And we've seen this a lot in the past. And I used to mention this about Nottingham Forest at the start of the season, where people used to praise them that, oh, NFO are so brave. They don't they like having a go at teams every now and then. But that's actually a negative for them, but a positive for the team that is playing against them. So that is my thinking with Brighton. I think it's a positive that they're playing two sides who are deep into a relegation battle, and
Crystal
they
Palace
don't have
isn't
a
that
choice
deep
but to
into
attack
relegation battle.
these games.
My problem
Yep.
with Leeds is in relegation battle, but I think that Leeds at home are much more like defense first. So if you look at their away numbers, they're bad. So away they've played Chelsea, they've put Fulham recently. They played Everton away. In those games, they've conceded a lot of shots, a lot of big chances. At home, they've not conceded a lot of chances relatively. It could be opposition wise as well, but in general, they've not conceded chances, which is a problem, which I think is why I'm maybe put more off. Although obviously Leeds put in a lot and Leeds attack a lot, they'll concede a lot of goals by Brighton. There's no doubt about it. But I'm just putting an argument that if someone wants to go safer in terms of Tony, it's not the worst option just because it's safe, but it could be actually the better option because it's safe.
Yeah, I think Tony is definitely the safer option, no doubt about that. And he's got a reasonable floor, right? If he scores one goal, let's say, and every time Tony scores, he somehow ends up with at least two bonus. So you're looking at 8 points. If he blanks in the other game, you're still getting a 2 pointer out of it. So that's 10 points for just one goal, which is not bad at all. So I think he's definitely safe. But yeah, if you're probably looking for something more, you want to go a bit more adventurous, there is obviously scope out there with the Brighton midfielders for whatever reason that we've discussed. Obviously, it could go horribly wrong. Like you said, Leeds are pretty reliable at home. So uh, if they end up winning, and even if Palace turns up, for example, we're looking at a blank. But I think that's a part and parcel, and that's the reason why they are Brighton midfielders at the end of the day, right? They are just 5 or 6 million midfielders because they are not very consistent. They're not a Salah, they're not a Haaland. So that's obviously that caveat as well when you go with them.
So I'm checking some more stats in general, like in terms of something that we can back up for captaincy. In case you find me on my phone, that is because I'm trying to find more data to find something more conclusive. But anyways, I just let's just sum it up in terms of captaincy. One, two, three. Name it for the people who are watching, and then we'll jump into the Q&A.
Right. So just a 1, 2, 3 ranking. I think my first preference
Or just
personally
a
would
one,
be
two. I think third one wouldn't be a issue.
Yeah. I think there's just two. I cannot look beyond these, and these are the two players who are my captain and vice captain. So number one would be McAllister. Number two would be Ivan Tony. These two would be my pick. For the reasons
I
that
think
we've discussed, they both have penalties as well, so I like them.
so. Personally, if you're going safe, I think Tony, uh, and second is Mitoma for me, and I think that's my preference as well. Tony and Mitoma. I don't see myself going elsewhere.
Yep.
But yeah, that's about it. I think I'll. Z, can you see the questions, or should I read them out?
Yep. We have just before we jump into the questions, I was just
Yeah.
thinking that obviously we've discussed the double game week captaincy options in detail. I've also seen a lot of managers on Twitter who are not very keen on double game week options for captaincy. So if you were to suggest two players who have a single game week for captaincy, who would be your pick and why?
Salah. First is Salah. Second is Haaland, obviously. So
No
prime
love
prime
for
prime players.
Rashford. No love for Rashford. Southampton at home.
Nah, I think Rashford could be an option as well, decent. But I think Salah's just come into form, and Haaland is just Haaland. So
Okay, that's nice. I think I agree. Salah is a great option. Actually, my pick would be another Liverpool player. I think Trent is a great captaincy shout. If you want to go, Maverick and back a single game week player, but you have to be very brave to go Trent. I've done it in the past and it's worked out well for me last season. But again, you have to be very brave. So I think Trent would be my pick for captaincy, and I think I like Haaland as well. Obviously, not much to add there. He's consistent, top scorer in the league. I think. It's a good game week to back Haaland if you don't fancy one of the double game week players for captaincy.
okay, so I think with that we'll jump into the Q&A and the questions that been coming in. So I'll just read out the questions. We'll quickly answer all really fast, as
Yeah,
fast as we can basically. So we have a lot of benching questions. We'll try to not repeat the benching questions. So please, like if you are looking, you can go back in the stream if you missed something. Shaw and Trippier, who would you bench? I would bench Shaw. Z?
yeah, yeah.
Sure, same.
So,
Logic is Trippier has been creating big chances. Wolves haven't been attackingly decent, so we're expecting a good show in terms of Newcastle at home. Defensively, a clean sheet. You can see when Newcastle keep a clean sheet, Trippier will be on the bonus. So that logic looks like a decent one. Same Zinchenko and Trippier, I think Trippier. So hands down, when you have a Trippier doubt, I think there is no other player apart from a double game week defender. I don't think Trippier, you're benching Trippier for anyone. You got to play him. It's also the EO play, so Trippier doesn't seem like a good benching option this game week for whoever are in this boat. I think Trippier should be your first choice starter there.
And they're
Same
playing
with
Wolves at home, right? If you're not
yeah.
starting Trippier in this game, then what's the point of owning him? Just
It's
playing
like,
Trippier.
yeah, it's a good fixture where he can score points, and why wouldn't you want to? Even though you're not, so there is an equal argument. Maybe like the only player I think I will bench Trippier is probably just Trent, because I think the Trent has enough clean sheet plus goal potential to, like, if they score similar points, or like Trent outscores him by certain points, I think that you're gaining a lot of rank. So just going by that play, I think Trent is the only player I'd bench Trippier for. Apart from that, hands down, obviously we're excluding the double gimmick players here, but Trippier should be a starter.
Yeah, yeah,
I discussed my captaincy. I'll tell my team later on. Gabriel again, not ahead of Trippier, not ahead of your double gimmick players. I think.
yeah,
If you have a better defender, I wouldn't start Gabriel.
yeah. Same. Yeah. I mean, I own Gabriel, and he's on my bench. I'm starting Trippier. So
Yeah, same.
yeah,
Zinchenko on
same.
my bench, Trippier in my 11.
Yeah,
Suggest changes to the team with 2 free transfers with no wildcard. Point 3 left. He sent in his team with Saka, Odegaard, Rashford, Andreas, Haaland, Kane, Nonto, and Bueno Trippier. So, two couple of things that I can see is this team is very light in terms of no, like Brentford and no Brighton players. So
right.
two moves that I'll make is Odegaard to Mitoma. That's one. And if you have enough funds, go Nonto to, or maybe if you can't do that, go Saka to an Mitoma and then go Nonto to Tony. I think you can afford those moves, and that should be fine.
Yeah,
The
same.
priority should be to get these two players, and I think you can't do it with Odegaard to Mitoma. So probably go Saka to Mitoma and Nonto to Tony, so that you get two double game players. You have your structure intact.
Yeah, I think it's pretty straightforward. I agree with that.
Yeah. Same, similar. Next, what's a senses in team and ask a question. What should be my 11? Very confused. I think most of us are in the same boat. The players that I would bench out of these would be, I think your 11 seems fine. Mitoma would be in for me. I wouldn't bench Mitoma. Martinelli steps out for me. But yeah, looks like good. Like the rest of it, it looks like the same to me.
Yeah.
What would you do?
I think Mitoma has to play. Obviously, if you have a double game week attacker,
Yeah.
you start him. Uh, in terms of benching options, again, I think it has to be Martinelli or Rashford. It's a very 50-50, to be honest. I think Martinelli sort of scares me now because he's playing that different role where he's probably playing, tucking in and inside at times and playing as a nine. So that is a scary proposition. But I think on paper, it makes sense to bench him ahead of Saka because Saka is on penalties. So that's that factor as well.
So
Apart from that, I
I've
think
been
it's
trying
fine.
to find this. I don't know how fit Odegaard is and will he start or not. If in case Odegaard doesn't start, I find Martinelli a better option. Only because I feel like Saka will play much more deeper because Odegaard is not there to support him, which could lead to Martinelli also drifting a lot more central, taking more chances. And that is what I feel. It could be wrong, but I think if you have certain news about Odegaard, I'm trying to check it as well. There could be an opportunity where you can gain rank in terms of not playing Saka or playing Martinelli over Saka.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
Uh, Varun says he really wants to go Mitoma. I think if you can go differential, this could be the game. If you want to play safe, Tony is the guy. But again, I have mentioned enough reasons why you should go Mitoma, even if you have McAllister and March in your team. We have a lot of similar questions in terms of Trippier and Gabriel and Zinchenko. So I think I would play Trippier over your Arsenal defenders. I wouldn't take a chance.
Yeah,
McAllister to a Mitoma, it's a move. So there are two popular questions, Z.
yeah.
McAllister to a Mitoma is a sideways move. Mitoma to a McAllister or Mars to a McAllister to a sideways move. Would you do
Uh,
any of them?
None of them. So if you're taking a Brighton midfielder out for another one, it doesn't make sense. I think it's an out
Yeah.
and out sideways move. Doesn't make sense. Stick with the one that you've got. Maybe back them with the captaincy, and they all, like we discussed right at the start of the stream. They're all very close, and it's not that we're saying it for the sake of it. The numbers actually back it up. So stick with the one that you've got for sure.
Yeah, same. I think if you have two Brighton midfielders, it's just like the split of points and split of goal involvement is actually very equal. I don't think you should make like a sideways move. Just stick with the player you bought in.
Yeah,
Harshit has put in a very interesting question to Z. I think we'll answer that once we have done the Q&A. Harshit, I'll come back to this question. Did you already set your teams? Ask someone to me. Yes, I'm set with my team. I'm saving a transfer. I am not set with my captaincy. I'll discuss that in the last 5 minutes. Uh, We more questions coming in. Can we see our teams? Unfortunately, we'll speak out our teams. We don't have them saved on this laptop. How long do you think Martinelli keeps his place? I think he keeps his place forever now.
Yeah,
I do have doubt that the next game that he could be benched and there could be rotation. And I feel only because the sporting game now is essential, and if he starts the sporting one, he could be like rested because the games is just in 2 days. Although there's not much travel involved, it's just a speculation, but something to watch out for. The next second leg of the Europa League could be interesting.
yeah. I think he's
Sure.
too crucial for Arsenal, right? So if you have him,
Yeah.
even if he's not starting, I expect him to come on 25, 30 minutes, which is good enough for Martinelli. We've seen what he can do.
Okay, so we've answered Saka, Zinchenko versus Trippier and Martinez is Saka. I think both of us at the moment are on Saka, but Martinelli has a shout to himself as well. Would you go Sanchez to steal? I would not. If you have a backup keeper, I would just play the backup keeper and not make the move.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah,
Same. I mean,
unless you're
we don't
bench
really
boosting,
know.
don't need to.
I mean, reading De Zerbi's comments, they're very confusing. So that could be a very sideways move, right away ahead of a double game week. So just play a backup keeper for sure.
Yeah,
Uh,
and
I,
also it could be a case where by the time you want to bench boost, he's it's like Sanchez is back in the team, so you don't have to make a transfer at all. I'm not
True.
taking that chance.
Yeah.
There's a question between Watkins and Madison. Who would you bench and play? I would play Watkins. He looks better in form in terms of Chelsea look defensively decent recently, so that's the bias I have there.
Yeah, I think I agree. Makes sense. And he's ticked
Uh,
along well as well
yeah.
in recent weeks, so it's an easy show.
Okay, best replacement for Odegaard,
Okay.
says Amir. I already have Saka, March, and Rashford. I think Mitoma. I would go
Yeah,
Mitoma. Even as a 1 week punt, I think Mitoma is a better one.
if you
Martinelli or
don't fancy
Zinchenko?
Mitoma, get McAllister, but it has to be
Oh,
Brighton. Like
Brighton
Mitoma
player.
would be
So
my
basically,
my
someone with
pick.
the double game week, I think essential there. Martinelli or Zinchenko? That's an interesting one.
I think you play Martinelli, obviously, because you play the attacker. That is always my thinking. And uh, Arsenal have not been great defensively, to be very honest, for a long time now. So you're essentially, if you're relying on attacking points, you might as well back someone who's playing closer to the goal. That is Gabriel Martinelli, of course.
Yeah. Do
Uh,
you think Jesus starts? I agree. By the way, last question. I think Martinelli as well. And I don't know if I don't think Jesus will start this one. It's too early. He'll probably be
yeah.
fused in easily with some minutes earlier on.
I think not until April. It's at least 2 or 3
Yeah.
weeks till
Even
we
if he's
see.
like in the team, he'll be coming off the bench. He won't start right away. I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon.
And he's coming on the back of a knee injury. So knee
Yeah.
injuries are, by the nature, they're very serious. So managers tend to be very cautious easing these players back in. So I think a long time before we consider them. Uh, a very specific captaincy question: Tony, Mitoma, Estupinian, Pinnock. Who would you captain out of these four?
Uh, so there's a lot of Mitoma versus Tony as well in the chat in terms of my captaincy. I'm very unsure at the moment, but if I had to just recommend someone, I think safer option with Tony is better. I wouldn't consider the defenses as an option. I think both these defenses will concede, be it either of the games. So I don't think they trustworthy defenses, and I wouldn't go there.
Okay. So Amir has been asking this a lot. March or Mitoma? He's confused. Who would you pick between March or Mitoma?
Long term March, I think, because March is more consistent and he's putting up better numbers.
For captaincy this week?
Mitoma. So if you have, it could play out. So as I explained, it could play out only specifically this week because March is very like he puts in lot more crosses and he holds the ball and holds the width more if Brighton have the position. So two observations which could work out this game week.
Yeah, yeah. Um,
Shakib has sent his team. Shezab has sent in his team. Raya, Trippier, Estupinian, Pinnock, Saka, Rashford, March, McAllister, Haaland, Tony, captaincy, and Kane. First sub is Martinelli, Zinchenko, Chilwell, bench. Any changes? I don't think there's any changes required. It's the exact same 11 that I have. Exact same team.
I think I agree. It's pretty much spot on. Obviously, Martinelli benching could be a risk, but I mean, there's no option, right? You have to back your double game week players. You have to back Harry Kane at home against NFO. So I think that team is fine the way it is.
Would you sell? Would you sell Kane for a Salah? Would you do it this game week?
No, sideways. I would never do that. No.
And also, Kane has a fixture next game week, so I wouldn't do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Bench one of Saka, Martinelli, and Madison. I think it's Madison for me, given the fixture.
Yeah. Yeah. Same.
Next question is who should I choose between March and Mitoma? I got March, but I think Mitoma is a must-have this game week. I wouldn't make the sideways move. I don't own Mitoma, and if I had him, obviously I would captain him. I've put in my arguments. I'm not make even if I had a free transfer, I don't think I'll make the sideways move because it could hurt you bad equally. I think just stick to
Yep.
the two you have. That's fine. March is, and also for a lot of people asking, March is fit. So apparently he didn't train on Tuesday, but yesterday, Deserby did mention that he's available and he should be okay to play.
Yeah, yeah. I think March will be fine, and sideways move or not. I think a very good example is the Arsenal midfielders in recent weeks, where a lot of people made the Martinelli to Odegaard move, and even though it made sense back then, it did
Like
backfire, and
it
Martinelli
backfired
went
bad. It
big.
backfired
Yeah,
very badly.
Martinelli went big. So this is the reason why we are not big fans of sideways move, especially in a double game week. You just have to back
And
your horse. Uh,
especially in a team where there is a total split in terms of points and chances, so it won't work out that way. Amir has been spamming March, Mitoma, or Tony for captaincy. If you want to go big, if you want to like pay the differential, I think Mitoma is the one. Otherwise, go Tony. Simple. Don't. I don't think March could like, even though he has the numbers, it could not maybe work out for him this game. All
yeah.
it can, it can. There's totally chance because they are weaker on that flank, and March is consistent in terms of figures. But I think maybe Mitoma. I'm just that's what I think. That's what I feel.
I think even in, we are also looking at availability, right? If you're looking at double game week, you potentially want someone for captaincy who could play all 180 minutes. I think March gets 130, 140 minutes, maybe 150. That is, my thinking, despite being someone who's a very happy March owner. So I think it's good enough if you have March, you own him. But I think captaincy, you have to look at a Tony or maybe a Matoma. These are the two options that you can look at.
Melon has put in a question. Do you think it's worth it going Martinelli to Mitoma? I have March and Sanchez. Both play same amount of fixtures over the next two. Both don't play. I think Martinelli plays an extra fixture in 28. Oh, in 29. In technically, yeah, they do actually
I think
because
it
they have.
depends. So if you have your plans for next week sorted, like maybe you're free hitting or whatever, then I
Yeah,
think
maybe
I'll
you are
make
okay
the
with
move.
playing one less player. I think then
Yeah.
it's fine.
Otherwise, it's just the same, right? It's two fixtures versus two, so it does not really make
It's
sense.
not actually
And
two fixtures versus two. It's two
in
versus
20
one
this
because
weekend, next. Yeah,
very likely that you'll sell either Martinelli or a Mitoma, whoever you get this week, for another Bruno or maybe a Madison in 29. So it's not two versus two, it's two versus one if you really think about it. I think Martinelli over the two fixtures almost equally scores. If you want to plan and captain Mitoma, then probably look at it and go for it. Otherwise, don't.
yeah,
Because you're very likely to get Bruno for someone in the midfield, which is probably either Martinelli or one of your Brighton mids. Maybe a Bruno plus Madison as well. So it depends on your plan, but I think very likely you'll be inclined to do that thing.
yeah. So I think it's important to make moves based on your future plans. That is key. Obviously,
Yeah.
you know the context of your team better than anyone else. So, like, yeah, keep that in mind. Uh, who Who do I start? Saliba, Botman, Watkins, or Odegaard? It's a question from Ansh.
Saliba, Botman,
Watkins,
Watkins, and
Odegaard.
Odegaard. I think Botman is the safest out of the lot.
Wow, okay.
6 points.
I
Yeah, you're
think
banking 6 points.
I think I'll be tempted to start Odegaard just in case he plays because I think he's probably top for away points this is coming from someone who sold him this week. But on paper, I think he's a fine move. So if he starts, he could get points. So, and if he doesn't start, obviously you've got a Botman coming on his first sub, so that could be uh,
That could be a
okay.
thing as well, but you're playing minutes there, so it could work out for you.
Yeah, yeah. Okay,
And yeah,
should I
so
triple
Ross put
captain
in
Tony?
his question that should I play my Liverpool players over an Odegaard? And I think that's true. What's answer it? You should bench Odegaard and play your Liverpool assets. Yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead, Z.
yeah. Oh yeah, there's a triple captaincy option. So would you triple captain Tony
Tony?
this week if you
No,
still
no,
had
no.
him?
I wouldn't. I wouldn't.
No, right? Yeah, I
I
mean
would.
it's we spoke about how we don't think the ceiling is very high for Ivan Tony. So if you
Yeah,
still have,
it's a decent base ceiling, but I don't think it's the best highest ceiling there. I wouldn't go there. I'm trying
I
to
think
check some Southampton numbers. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
another specific question. So you've got, would you take out Saka, Nonto, and Bruno for a -4 to get in March, Tony and Henry?
I
I think
would
it's
for a minus
yeah,
four. Maybe if you can get Estupinian, I would prefer Estupinian.
I think I like the moves as well. It's a good. You're getting three double game week players in, so I think it's a good play.
I think We have the league lineup for Liverpool. It's almost the same team that started last time, so there's no changes. 3 minutes left. I need to think about my team. So sorry, guys. I'm a bit intrigued. I am at the moment. I'm still on Tony captaincy. Uh, very tempted to go to a McAllister or Brighton midfielder. Essentially, I have McAllister and March, so it will be March captaincy for me. But I think I'm thinking of sticking it on Tony as it is. So March and McAllister, if they go big, it's fine. I'm thinking I'm going Tony. Every point that I stated has like backed it up so far. So I'm just trying to backtrack if Southampton are also weaker on their through the center and decent. Like, yeah, that's about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, Last minute, a lot of questions about benching Trippier, Zinchenko. Guys, we've covered this almost
Yeah,
throughout the
we've
pod.
covered this enough actually.
Yeah, if you've got Trippier at home against Wolves, you have to play him. So we think that Trippier has to start.
And Wolves are weaker on their flank. So Trippier will have like a good game probably.
Yep. Yep.
Estupinian captaincy doesn't. I don't think that's the best captaincy shout.
Yeah, just like almost just a little over 2 minutes to go. I think we should read out our teams uh,
Yeah,
before the
go ahead. Go
deadline.
ahead. Start with your team first.
Yeah, I'll go ahead with mine. So, like I've said before, I've just made one change to my team this week. Odegaard goes out, and I've got Mitoma in my team finally. So here's what my 11 looks like. I've got David De Gea in goal. I've got Trippier, Trent, and Robertson. So it's a Liverpool double up defensively. Uh, I've got Solly March, Mitoma, and McAllister, three Brighton midfielders, along with Rashford and Salah in the midfield. And I've got Tony and Holland as my two strikers. Captaincy is on McAllister. I think I like his underlying data when he's playing in that number 10 position recently. Uh, he is on penalties and set pieces as well. So yeah, that's my team. Over to you, Anshuman.
So I'm saving a transfer this week. My 11 is Raya in goal. I have Pinnock in defense. I have Trippier. I have who wait. I have to see. I have Estupinian. I have Rashford, McAllister, March, Saka, Haaland, Kane, and Tony. Tony captaincy. I'm putting Martinelli first on the bench. Simple thought process. I think that since the teams are weaker on the center, Tony could get an odd penalty as well. So I'm going that side. The only reason I've put myself off because I don't have Mitoma. If I had Mitoma, I'd go there for the differential factor. But since I have March and McAllister, I'm happy with the points they get. I'm going Tony also because of the EO play there. So that's my captaincy and team. Last minute, I'll answer a couple of questions if I can. Don't have Trippier. Who should I bench? Zinchenko or Shaw? I think play Shaw. He's more attacking. Look, Fulham could score. Uh, any Odegaard news? No, there's no Odegaard news. I have who to bench: Shaw, Trippier, Odegaard, Andreas. I would bench probably Andreas and play the
Andreas.
rest. I'd play Trippier first, then I'll play Odegaard, then Shaw, and then Andreas. You can bench Odegaard, Shaw is a 50-50 in my opinion. Mitoma or McAllister. Mitoma this week. McAllister long term. Going just with March from Brighton Bishmillah could work out for you. It depends on how the game state is. If the game state is more possession placed in terms of Brighton, it could not work out. But otherwise, it's a good option. March is still, in terms of the numbers, one of the best Brighton assets. So nothing wrong
Yep.
in going March and captaining him. Play Sanchez in case he starts. No, don't play Sanchez. Play the other keeper you have. Does Benmi start over Zinchenko? Yes, obviously double. Yes, you start your double game week player over the others. And with that, that
That's
is it.
it,
That's
right?
about it. Yeah,
Yeah,
that is
time's up. Deadline's gone. And for those who've locked in their team, I mean, there's going to be just a variety of different captains this game week. So I'm very
yeah.
excited
I think it's
about
gonna be
what's
Tony
coming.
most likely who's the
Yeah. Yep.
just a question that I also mentioned, like in terms of I'll get back to this question, Harshit. When we think of games these days, given the uncertainty of the results and increasing competition, how important are previous stats against just plain form when forming a team? Like I think it's essentially form versus stats kind of question.
This is something that so I think even Anshuman will sort of agree with this. So we don't think that stats are something that are like a very alien concept. To us, stats are nothing but a reflection of what happens on the field. So it's just that it's very easy to evaluate the actions that happen in the field. So that is our logic. We don't look at it as like a grass versus
Like one
analytics
part
or
of what happened on the field, one part of what
exactly,
happened.
exactly. So there's a lot of context behind it. At times, managers can make tweaks here and there, but I think big data over a course of time tells the reality of what is actually transpiring on the field, and it is an optimal. We won't say best, but it's an optimal indicator of what could happen in the future. And obviously, you look at the fixtures, right? Easier fixtures get you more points in FPL. So a player playing an easy opponent is likely to score more goals. So I think that is the logic. We don't think there's a lot of rocket science to it, and yeah, we don't believe in going into that eye test and all of that discussion. It's just straight
No,
up
it
from
could
us.
work out. I test could be big because if, as what we mentioned, if Leeds play out that way, it could be huge. So
Yeah.
let's see.
So
Like
eye test
the eye
can
test
help us
really matters in
identify
terms of
trends.
Brighton.
Yeah. True, true. It
Yeah,
can help you get identify trends and get ahead of the curve before that eye test translates to data. So yeah, you're right
yeah.
in that regard.
And eye test. Yeah, the eye test makes you go ahead of the curve is an exact. Form is also something similar. So eye test comes in, like form comes into eye test. If your eye test is good, you will be ahead of the curve usually. But with that, we are done. It's deadline, and we have set our teams. I think if there is no messing up on the app, I think it's saved. It shows me Tony. Hopefully, it stays that way. I hope there is no changes. And yeah, that's it from me and Z. Hope you guys like the stream. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe if you haven't, and hit the like button before leaving the stream and going away. We keep doing a lot of podcast sort of stuff on our channel. It is usually very good, and the insights, as you saw, are generally different from what you see. So there's a lot of opinions on Twitter which are out, but we give you a different perspective in terms of those opinions and stats. So yeah, if you like the stream, please hit the like button and subscribe. Anything else, Z?
No, I think it was great. Lovely chatting to all of you. Lovely chatting to you
Yeah,
as well once again, Anshuman. And we will be back next game week with
next
another
week.
podcast.
Yeah. Thank you
Cheers.
guys. Bye.